Good morning, everyone. We would like to thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning on the first presentation of a three-part Filice HR Compliance webinar series discussing technology and your benefits plan. Today's webinar is going to go over how to determine if an online system is a good fit for your company. So, is your company ready to implement an online system to help manage your group health plan? My name is Tasha Merritt, and I work in the HR Compliance Department at Filice Insurance as the Director of HR Services. I'm joined today by another member of our compliance team, our in-house ERISA counsel, Deborah Hyde. During today's presentation, we're going to explore the driving forces behind technology's increased role in employer group health plans, discuss the potential advantages of incorporating an online system into your group health plan, and also assess important factors in determining what type of technology platform would be best for your company. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. The duration of today's webinar should be between 30 to 45 minutes. Feel free to utilize the Q&A widget that's at the bottom of your screen to ask questions as you have them. We'll address submitted questions at the conclusion of the presentation as time permits. Some of the other accessible items you should see below are a slides widget, which will toggle the PowerPoint presentation on and off of your screen. There's also a resources widget that contains our readiness assessment solution tool. This tool covers some of the main points that we'll be going over today, but it's not necessary to follow along with the presentation. There's also a widget that contains a link to our public website. You can use this link to browse some of our recently added compliance publications, view our blogs, or register for either of the additional webinars that are in this series. The final widget that you should see is a help widget, and that just contains troubleshooting information, so if you're having difficulties using the platform that we're using today to host this webinar. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. So what is driving this big corporate push for technology? The Affordable Care Act is obviously a major factor in the desire for online platforms in the workplace. Employers who are subject to the Affordable Care Act and its applicable regulations have heightened compliance and reporting requirements, so they can benefit tremendously from having a system in place to help assist them in meeting the new rules and requirements. Consumer demand is another important factor. There's a growing number of millennials in the workforce, and with millennials comes the expectation of a technology-driven work environment. That expectation then trickles down from the employer onto the insurance carriers and to the benefits brokers as well. Another factor is the antiquated insurance industry. Current insurance transactions rely heavily on paper resources, and in this day and age, that's not seen as user-friendly or expedient. Let's touch on some of the advantages of incorporating a technology system into your benefit plan processes. So one advantage is online enrollment. No more chasing down paper files during open enrollment or from your new hires. Most systems allow for employers to use follow-up automation. So if you see, for example, that an employee has started the open enrollment process but not yet completed it, you can send them an alert directly through most online systems. One other big advantage of online enrollment is employers should have a lower rate of error on their employee enrollments. All the information is typed into the applicable forms versus being handwritten by employees, so that should lead to less mistakes on the carrier's end due to forms being submitted that are illegible. Employee self-service is another advantageous feature of online enrollment platforms. Employees have the ability to see what plans are available to them, what contribution amount is going to be deducted from their paycheck based on the benefits they've chosen, and to submit status changes on their own through most systems. Compliance automation gives employers the ability to ensure that they're providing any necessary and or required documentation to not only their employees but to enrolled dependents. All required plan documents, for example, the summary of benefits and coverage document or the evidence of coverage document that are associated with group health plans, are required to be provided to all plan participants. So not only your employees, but also those non-employees that are enrolled as either spouse or dependent. So using an online system is going to help employers further comply with that requirement, among others. Access to data. Employers will have access to run reports and conduct an analysis on employee information that's contained in the system. Pulling data on plan participation, declination of coverage reasons, and overall benefits utilization can be done very easily through an online system. Human resource information system capability. Some online systems have the ability to take over more of the HR function than just online enrollment. Onboarding functionality and integration with other workforce management systems is extremely common in most systems. So the decision to implement an online system can make way for your company to implement a system that not only provides paperless benefits enrollment, but time and attendance management, payroll, and other HR functions as they're needed. So the big question, why conduct a technology readiness assessment? As I'm sure most of you know, there are a wide range of systems available to employers of all sizes, but finding the right fit for your company's needs is critical. Before you select an online system, you should really take the time to assess your company's objectives and draw realistic conclusions about the role technology can play in your workplace. Traditionally, technology was something that was available and widely used by larger employers, but now there are online enrollment vendors that are capable of sustaining the small to mid-sized employers, so those age-banded rating tables. Now we're going to go ahead and touch on 5 assessment points that should be considered when researching the right online system for your company. Assessment point number 1 is going to be your company culture. The goal of utilizing technology is to take pressure off of your administrative staff by empowering your employees to take action on benefits and HR issues. So the system you choose should be accessible to your workforce, complement the skills of your admin staff, and be able to accommodate future growth. Implementing a system that will be underutilized or that your employees will be reluctant to adapt to can be problematic. So you want to assess the demographics of your population to determine whether an online system is actually a viable option to relieve your staff of benefits-related tasks and provide more efficiency, or if it's just going to end up being more burdensome. Points related to company culture that should be considered. Are your employees comfortable with and have access to technology as a part of their daily work duties? So do your employees have work-related computer access? If your staff isn't familiar with using technology, since it isn't necessarily a part of their job responsibilities, is this transition going to go smoothly? Another consideration point is your administrative team's willingness and ability to learn and manage a new system. Are your admin staff members that will be managing the system, are they tech savvy? Are they open to a new system? You have to have a realistic expectation. So is your admin team capable of, and more importantly, willing to learn and maintain a brand new system? The final consideration point, the company's current workforce population and expected future growth. So what is your short-term projected growth? As I mentioned earlier, certain systems can be better suited for certain employer size groups. So if you have plans on tripling in size over the next few years, you're going to want a system that you can continue to use through that growth, obviously. Another question to consider with this point is if you're a member of a controlled group. If so, the usage of a consistent system for all members of that group would obviously be ideal. The next assessment point is benefits and administration. An online system is designed to help automate the process of benefit plan administration. So your company's benefit plan design, participation rates, and current administrative practices will help to dictate which system your admin staff and employees will best respond to. You want to ensure that the transition from your current practice to the new system is as smooth as possible and leaves the least amount of room for error. So if you have a complicated set of plan designs or you offer, let's say, varying contribution strategies based on different employee classifications, then you're going to want to assess whether the system you're looking at is intuitive enough to handle those specific characteristics without causing confusion to your employees. What you should consider to this point is the level of self-service your employees should have compared to your current model. Do your employees rely heavily on your administrative staff to enroll in your group health plan already and make election changes? Are you consistently having to motivate your employees to participate in open enrollment each year? Another consideration point, whether you want to preserve any administrative processes once the switch is actually made to an online system. So what current benefit processes could be disrupted by the implementation of an online system? Would you still want to conduct an annual open enrollment meeting or simply announce open enrollment via your online system? The third bullet point, your benefit plan design should be considered, such as the benefits offered, premium and contribution rates, and eligible employee classes. So are your plan premiums on age-banded rating? Are any of your benefits bundled? For example, do you offer a vision and life and AD&D plan through the same carrier? Do you have different benefit offerings for different employee classifications? Again, you're going to want to ensure that the system you go with is intuitive enough to handle your specific benefit plan structure. The last consideration point is whether you prefer a system with EDI feeds to connect directly with the insurance carriers. So an EDI feed or carrier connection provides a seamless connection straight from your online enrollment platform directly to the appropriate carrier. Not all systems offer this functionality, though, so if it's an important factor, then you're going to want to ensure that the vendor you're interested in has connections with the carriers that you offer. Carrier connections can definitely make for a more efficient benefit experience, but some employers prefer to provide more of a manual handoff of benefit forms to carriers to ensure that incorrect information is not mistakenly submitted. System integration is going to be the next assessment point. Some technology platforms include functionality that goes beyond just benefits administration and online enrollment to encompass payroll processes and other HR functions, and that would be a full-blown HRIS system. Platforms that lack these features may be able to integrate with your existing systems, but others have no integration capability whatsoever. As a result, your company may need to be flexible about uprooting current systems or find a platform that works with current practices. So basically, this provides employers with 3 options in selecting a system. Either 1, select a system that encompasses a full-blown HRIS, so it has your time and attendance, payroll, and your online enrollment. 2, work with separate systems that have the ability to be integrated, or 3, work with separate systems that have no integration capability at all. A few consideration points related to system integration. 1 is your overall satisfaction with your current payroll system. Are you happy with your payroll system? If not, an online system that has an added payroll function may be something that's optimal for your company. Second consideration, whether you want a platform that will facilitate other aspects of HR management, such as employee scheduling, performance reviews, and personnel record keeping. Do you have needs in these areas that can be addressed by the same system that you use to handle your online enrollments? And lastly, other systems that are relied upon, such as project management software or internal communication lines that could be incorporated into a single platform. You're going to want to think about other employee-utilized systems that could be disrupted or enhanced with the implementation of a new system. And with that, I'm going to pass the remainder of the presentation over to Deborah.
Thank you, Tasha. So the 4th assessment point that we're going to evaluate this morning is compliance management. Most online systems now are up to speed with functionality that will help employers navigate growing compliance complexities, but each system is designed to handle compliance challenges differently. So what this means is that it's important to identify the very specific compliance-related needs of your company to ensure that you'll have the right tools available to you without letting other features go largely unused. So as I'm sure most of you are aware, there is just a huge wide range of system tools out there that will help you effectively manage various compliance obligations that you might face on a day-to-day basis. But the key is to really be aware of the compliance requirements that your benefit plan is subject to, and then to identify those areas that you'd like some support on from an outside system. So be certain that the system you choose is capable of addressing these needs for you, but you also want to be equally sure that you don't select a system with multiple tools or functionality that you really don't need, as that's just going to end up being a wasted resource and potentially a very expensive wasted resource. So some considerations to think about when evaluating compliance management. So first and foremost, think about whether your company is subject to the Affordable Care Act's employer shared responsibility provisions. Generally, these are going to be employers with 50 or more full-time employees. And if you're subject to these provisions, you're likely dealing with compliance points related to things like tracking employee eligibility, calculating the affordability of your coverage, and preparing ACA reports and filing them with the IRS on an annual basis. So be sure that you select a system that can efficiently manage all of these points for you. On the other hand, if you're not subject to these provisions and you don't foresee yourself growing in the next few years to then become subject to these regulations, there's really no need to purchase and implement and maintain a system that has all of these features. They're really not going to be of any help to you, and it's possible that they may actually interfere with some of the functionality of your system. Another point to consider is how effective your method is to distribute state and federal required notices to group health plan participants. So how do you currently provide required notices and plan documents, like your SBCs and summary plan descriptions, to plan participants? Most systems out there can help you in some way or another with either housing these documents or also potentially disseminating these documents to those who are required to receive them. But one thing you want to keep in mind is that, beyond just your active employees, you also have to provide these notices to inactive employees that might be participating via COBRA and dependent children often. So make sure that your system does make those notices available not just to your active employees, but to all of your plan participants. And then finally, you'll want to consider your company's compliance requirements under HIPAA privacy and security rules. So be mindful of any internal policies and procedures that your company has in place in regard to utilizing an outside vendor who's going to have a lot of access to personally identifying information of your employees. Also be sure that the system vendor that you end up working with complies with applicable HIPAA rules to protect your information in the same way that you protect it. So you want to make sure that the vendor you work with is complying with all these regulations and not leaving your company vulnerable to potential liabilities. The fifth and final assessment point that we're going to take a look at this morning is broker support. So while technology platforms are designed to be interactive and very user-friendly, the process of system implementation and ongoing maintenance can easily overwhelm even the savviest employer. Because of this, your group benefits broker can be either an invaluable asset to you throughout this endeavor or perhaps really your biggest obstacle. So no doubt we've all had experiences where a certain piece of tech was supposed to make life easier for us, but actually it ended up complicating things and causing endless frustration. So unfortunately, that type of an experience is possible when incorporating a tech platform into your benefit plan, but this is really where your group benefit broker can make all the difference. So your broker should be your partner in this process and should really act as a huge source of support for both you and really for your employees as well. So you'll want to consider a few different points in regard to broker support. And the first is going to be the level of knowledge and experience that your broker has with the use of online systems. So does your broker work with technology with his or her other clients? Or would you really be one of the only clients who's implementing technology in your benefit plan? Also ask about your broker's relationships with a wide range of vendors of online systems. So if your broker has relationships with many different vendors, that means they're likely going to be able to help you assess which system will be the best fit for you, and they'll also be able to help you kind of troubleshoot and navigate your way through implementation. Also consider your broker's flexibility to work with a system of your choice as opposed to offering a single or proprietary solution. So when it comes to technology in your benefit plan, a one-size-fits-all solution really doesn't work. You need to choose the best system for your company's needs, and not the best system for your broker's needs. Plus, something to consider is this system should really be one that can survive the lifespan of your relationship with your broker if necessary. So you want to take ownership of this system. You want to be able to adapt to it and to work with it, and you want it to enhance your benefit plan. So if there's a time where you part ways with your broker, you want to make sure that the system that you've worked so hard to get up and running isn't disrupted. Also ask about the amount of support your broker will provide with implementation, as well as once the system is up and running. So transitioning to a system can be a really time-consuming process. Make sure that your broker will be willing and available to assist with that process. You also want to make sure that your broker is capable of acting as a source of support for your administrative staff and your employees. So undoubtedly, throughout this process of implementing tech and transitioning to the new platform, there are going to be a lot of questions coming from your staff as well as from your employees most likely. And it may not always be practical for you to answer those questions. You might not be able to. And it may not even be practical to always lean on the support from the vendor. So you want to make sure that your broker has a level of knowledge and experience with the system where they're able to step in and answer those questions. Finally, consider whether your broker will utilize the data generated by your system to improve upon your benefit plan. So with an online system comes access to all kinds of data on participation levels and benefits utilization, and possibly even reasons why your employees are declining to participate in your plan. So your broker should really be able to evaluate this data and use that to improve the success of your plan. Otherwise, without tapping into that and reacting to it, all of that data and that really rich data source is just going to go untouched, which would be unfortunate. All right, now that we've covered all 5 of the assessment points, it's really the perfect time to take a look at some systems and evaluate some of your options that are out there. So at the conclusion of our 3-part webinar series, we will be hosting complimentary vendor demos. And these are going to be taking place on Tuesday, May 3rd through Thursday, May 5th. And the presenting vendors will be ADP, eCentral, Paycom, Paylocity, and PlanSource. Details and registration will be provided to all attendees via email. So be on the lookout for that email. And of course, if you don't happen to receive it for whatever reason, reach out to one of us and we'll be sure to set you up with that registration link. It will be a really great opportunity to take a look at multiple systems and vendor capabilities, and also to ask questions. So really use this opportunity to take a look at the systems and kind of go through the assessment process that we've gone through today to determine, which of these systems might be the best fit for me. So before we address any outstanding audience questions, we just want to take a quick moment to thank you for joining us this morning for the first webinar in this series, Technology in Your Benefit Plan. A little bit about Filice. So we're benefits consultants, and we really work hard to bring our clients paperless enrollment via system implementation. So our goal here is to really help reduce your administrative burden through the use of an online system. And we have a team in-house of technology experts to help you in all stages of that process. So we really believe strongly in the use of technology, and we really believe strongly in the advantages that it can provide employers. All right, let's turn to some questions with the few minutes that we have remaining this morning. It looks like we have about 5 minutes maybe left to answer those questions. Also, feel free to submit questions after the webinar to either Tasha or myself. Our email addresses are there below. All right, so let's take a look. So one question, what if my employees don't have access to computers?
So employers who have an employee population that don't have regular work-related computer access can still benefit from an online system. It would just be more of a manual process on the admin team side. They would still obviously have to chase down those paper forms, but then once they input that information into the system, then they would still have the capability to access all of the data, all the reporting data, and then they could even use an online system that has other HR components within it. So it still can be beneficial to that employer.
Let's see. Do you recommend a specific system that handles ACA reporting? Good question. No, I don't think we really have a specific vendor who we would recommend in terms of the way that they handle ACA reporting, and those are the reports 1094 and 1095C that are filed. This past March actually was the first time that those reports came due, and vendors handled that process very differently. So I can't really recommend one or the other, but I will say if your benefit system does not have an integrated payroll piece, you will end up having to supply that payroll information in order to get those reports completed. So you're going to have to kind of think of it as a two-part process. There's benefits enrollment information, and there's also payroll information that need to be kind of coming together to complete those reports. So if you're thinking about automating that process of completing those reports, you will want to definitely keep your eye out for a system that has payroll functionality built into it, or that can integrate with your current payroll system. Okay, do you have a list of systems that you find effective, and what size company they target? So we don't have a list of systems that we would just go through and kind of rattle off to you. We do work with a really wide range of systems and vendors. Some we work with more than others, of course. I will say that for a smaller employer, so again, that's going to be that 1 to 100 size, we do very often place those size clients with the eCentral platform. It works really well for that size of a client. It also has the capability to complete those ACA reports that we were just talking about. So eCentral is definitely a great choice for a smaller employer. Okay, how does a system make plan notices available to a non-employee? Tasha, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So most systems do this by way of a documents library, so you'll want to make sure that the online platform that you are looking into has a public URL that non-employee plan participants can access to get all of the documentation that they are required to get as plan participants. If most of the vendors that we've worked with have a solution for that, they have a public URL. So if you check with the system and they don't, then you're going to want to raise that concern, because you are required to get those SBCs and EOCs to all plan participants, not just your employees that have a login to that online system.
Okay, and final question, it looks like, how do I know if my rates are age banded? So that question is talking about premium rates for medical plans. So Tasha mentioned earlier that if your benefit plan is age banded or age rated, that you'll need to really be keenly aware of that when you select a system to make sure that the system can handle that complex rating structure. An age banded plan, really, that's going to primarily be a small group plan. So 1 to 100 employees, you'll probably be on an age banded or age rated plan. You'll know that because when you take a look at your premium or your rates, each employee or each participant in your plan will have a different premium amount tied to them based on their age. So there's not going to be just one composite rate set for every single employee. It's going to differ based on age, and those can get tricky. They can be difficult to juggle and to keep administratively straight. So a system that can handle those rates is going to be key for you. All right, so I think that's there are a few questions that we have outstanding, but we are just about out of time. So if we weren't able to address your question now, we will follow up with you via email later on today to answer your question. And like I said, if you have questions that come up later, please feel free to reach out to either Tasha or to me, and we will try to help you out with that. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.